Okay, so no, we have a substance abuse game of the week, which is just if there's a good late night game, which I can start doing that from now on. I think the people would like it, but the way this slate is scheduled is that basically from like you have a sleepy noon slate, moving on into the 3:30. There's like a banger in every single time slot, and then some like overlapping where you have like 7:30, and 8. You have like three. I think you have 5 banger games going at the same time, and then you have like 2 great late night games that should just be a ton of fun. So this is a substance abuse Saturday. You might want to chill out for the noon games, but I don't know why I said that like Cartman, but the noon games.
All right, I can get behind a substance abuse weekend. That's never stopped me before.
I don't feel like that's too different from most weekends we have now.
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, literally. I mean, I fell asleep before I think Miami and Cal even kicked off, so I got to wake up to 2:30 at like 2:30 in the morning and saw those highlights on my TV, and I was like, "What? What happened?"
I did the same exact thing. I mean, listen, full honesty policy here. We all fell asleep before the Miami and Cal game. I think we were all out of commission just after the Vanderbilt game finished up. But yeah, I woke up and was like, "They did what now?"
Yeah, it was a weird. It was a weird Saturday of drinking because I went immediately from celebrating Pitt, to then it's also Red October. It's baseball season. Got the Yankees on right now. Saturday was a tough game for the Phillies, so it was a weird dynamic that I was drinking to, but definitely glad I got some happy drinking early in the day with the Panthers.
Well, let's talk about those Panthers, baby, because that feels like 1991.
First down, goes to the sidelines, has a man wide open.
Reminds me of last year in the Garden against St. John. And guys just stepped up. Blake hits a what the hell 3. We're like, what are you doing? And he's done that all year.
Klicka out to Bazzario. It's over. The Pitt Panthers have upset Wisconsin. Anybody if he hits his field goal. Up and got it. Sauls does it again.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Simplify Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Kaminsky. I'm joined by my co-host, Mason Kling. And before we really get started here, I just do want to congratulate Simplify follower Brian Tuttle on winning the ticket giveaway, the first one we've ever done. No one got the score totally right, but he's the only one who got Pitt's score right. And he was off by 3 for North Carolina. So if you're driving, first off, hands off the wheel, as always. That's sort of a list. That's a listener rule we have here. And just start clapping. Clap it up for Mr. Tuttle. But Mason, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. It's one of my rituals to before, or I guess as we're just recording the podcast, I'll pull up ESPN, and it feels so good, so very good. I don't have to filter it down just to ACC now to see Pitt, right? I hit that top 25 button and scroll down a little bit, and we're right there. We're right in the center of it all. It feels amazing.
Dude, I haven't even thought about that yet, but I got to say, that's one of my big gripes with ESPN is that it always defaults to top 25.
Yeah.
And when you change from week to week, it resets it. Like, first off, fuck that. But
I'm sure there's a better app out there, but I haven't been able to cut the cord on ESPN yet.
The issue is for me is that I still have a fantasy league there. If none of my fantasy leagues are there, I'd probably just go straight to the score, which is fine. It's just better than ESPN.
Yeah, maybe that'll be like my New Year's resolution is I'll just try a new score app. But we're rocking with it for the rest of the season. I'm not I'm not reinventing the wheel here in week 7.
Yeah, we're not rocking the boat. My biggest gripe with the ESPN app, honestly, is just how slow the play-by-play comes in. You'll get like
Oh,
4
that's
plays at a
awful.
time. Yeah.
That's awful. It's like so frustrating. It's bad enough for football. I think baseball might be even worse.
I will say, I think it's worse for football, but baseball at least gives you the live pitches. Even though it's, very far behind, I do like seeing the pitches sort of, in play runs is always great to see. Well, not always great, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're talking baseball here. You mentioned this earlier. Pitt is now ranked number 22 in the country. It is the first time they've been ranked since, I think, week 4 of the 2022 season, before losing to Georgia Tech at home, and they were ranked number 7, 2019, something like that, 17, 19, whatever. Top 25. We've made it. We're now one of 12 undefeated teams left in the country, along with a certain other team in central Pennsylvania. I'm not talking about Temple or Bucknell.
That'd be crazy if Bucknell drop on the pod.
Actually, I have to fact check myself because I don't know if I'm right.
It certainly isn't Temple.
Well, I mean, there's certainly not a central. Oh my god, there's no way. Is Bucknell undefeated right now? Am I learning about this? No. Okay, thank God. They're 3-2. They're 3-2. Almost had a nightmare scenario there where I was not given the Bucknell whatever mascot they have, the correct sort of reverence.
Bison,
but
Bucknell Bison, I believe.
They either that or a buffalo. I'm gonna go with Bison. That looks right. But all right, let's start it off. Pitt wins first win ever in Chapel Hill, 34-24 over the reeling Tar Heels. Now dropped to 3-3 and 0-2 in the conference. Mason, give me your just first overall reaction from this game.
It wasn't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We covered. We won, like you said, in Chapel Hill at that stadium for the first time ever, which the more I thought about it after we recorded the podcast last weekend, the more I kind of felt bad about it. I was like, this is a trap game. We are always awful against UNC. We just, for whatever reason, they give us trouble. So I feel like I was not feeling that great going into it. Started off so, but then they just took care of business. Like at the second half of the game, it felt like we were in control for pretty much the entirety of the game. Defense figured it out. Offense did what they had to do and called a dub.
Yeah, I will say, I think a lot of people were freaking out about how this game starts, obviously, because of the history with UNC, the fact that Eli, there was a pretty bad pick 6 on the second drive. The defense does not look good the entire first half, but I think overall we knew the defense was going to be concerned coming into this year, but they still managed to find a way to actually, when it really mattered, they bowed up. I mean, UNC turned the ball over on downs 3 times in this game. Oh, sorry, 4 times. They held up on fourth down 4 times, I believe. Pull this up. Yeah, North Carolina went for it on fourth down 6 times this game and got it twice. So when you're facing that volume, that's a very, very good rate to hit at. And I think some of those were on the same drives that turned it over. But overall, I think the offense obviously was fantastic. I mean, Des Reed is a force out of the backfield, winning wide receiver of the week in the ACC as a running back. Eli Wokestein still undefeated in rookie of the week, so that makes 5 for him. Then, Kanate Mumfield is just overall breaking out. He had those 2 huge catches to set Pitt up for scores. Eli is still a force to be reckoned with on the ground. He was the leading rusher for the day. Sincerely, Poppy Williams getting involved in the offense. Kenny Johnson got 2 catches, so did Gavin. I mean, overall from the offense, there were a couple times where I think they missed opportunities to score, but ended up not hurting them too much. They're still fairly efficient and get down to the red zone and scoring. And I mean, at least on that final drive where they settled for a field goal, that was a 7-minute drive. And I was doing the math today. That is only their second touchdown drive over 5 minutes of holding the ball all year.
Yeah, it's nice to know that they can slow it down if needed, though. Like, it's not. We like to play fast and score faster, but we can also take the foot off the gas a little bit when needed. Which we were talking about that like the whole game, because it was a hot day down in UNC, and I think that was also affecting the defense maybe a little bit, because after that pick six, I think we had two like very quick scores. So the defense was playing a ton.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you saw players cramping late in the game.
Yep.
I mean, I think coming out of the game, obviously you're happy that you win. You're happy that you win in Chapel Hill, even though you had a weird, slow, and clunky start. I think that the things you're looking for this team to improve moving forward, I think they do improve moving forward just because UNC does sort of have an underrated defensive front. They're very talented if they don't really show it that much, but they do have a lot of talent up there. Is that the rushing game outside of Eli wasn't great. You know, Rodney Hammond returned, only got 4 carries, though. 4 carries and 9 yards. Dez had 18.55. He was obviously more effective through the pass game where he had $155 on 11 catches. And then the defensive line, I think it showed some more promise with Fitzsimmons back in at D tackle. Nick James was unavailable, who was the other sort of guy that Narduzzi says is the best option there. But I think the D-line really has not done much this year. I mean, granted, they look a little bit better with Fitzsimmons.
The run game stuff still kind of is the question mark, I think, because the pass rush was definitely better on Saturday. This could be just the product of playing against a very good running back also. But when the Pitt defense was struggling, I feel like it was the run game that was kind of hurting us the most. They were getting them for chunks at a time.
Yeah, for sure. Hampton had 23 carries on the day for 106. We held Criswell to only 269 yards passing. I will say, though, I think that the D-line really just has to get better. I think that Sincere Edwards is probably one of the best players as a true freshman. The linebackers still, even though the D-line in front of them is really struggling, they are really, just showing up week in, week out. Kyle Lewis with 2.5 tackles for loss. Rasheem Biles with 1.5. McIntyre with half from the safety spot. And Sean Fitzsimmons is the only D-lineman with a tackle for loss. But he really did make his presence felt in this game. On that last 4th down stop, he was the one who was able to shed his block and hold up Hampton for just long enough for Biles and Lewis to come over the top, and I think Brandon George as well, and stop Hampton before converting on 4th down, very deep in Pitt territory. So it's going to be really good to have him back, and they're going to be tested next week. We'll talk about this coming up, but it's certainly not the last good running back we're going to face.
Definitely not. Definitely
in the
not.
ACC, yeah.
You're right. I mean, I will give them some credit in the run game. Once they were getting gashed, but as soon as we got down in the red zone, we can kind of get, once you have to play less over the top, you get one more player down in the box. Mm-hmm. We did do a much better job of limiting that. So I don't know if maybe that's the strategy that we're going with, or just something that kind of happened through the game flow. But credit where credit's due. They did, like you said, bowed up pretty well, even after some of those long drives.
And yeah, I mean, in terms of UNC as well, 24 points is the second lowest amount they've scored all year. Or sorry, third lowest. They scored 19 in the opener and 21 last week. But this is a high-powered offense. We saw that. And I think that Pitt was just able to force them to not be able to capitalize, whether that was stops on 4th or just forcing them to punt on 3rd. I think it was a very frustrating first half, especially with the time possession being pretty lopsided in the first half. They ended up with a near 50-50 split, but overall, I think the concerns are still the same. It's just a young D-line, a young secondary. I'm just hoping that the run game can get back on track next week, especially with Reed and Hammond and Daniel Carter all available. I think Derek Davis is probably just out with an injury for a little bit, but I don't love Holstein being your leading rusher, even though he is very dangerous on the ground. I mean, listen, the QB power in the fourth quarter was a great play call. He just walked in untouched, but
Yep.
just less opportunities for him to get hit, please.
It's 100%. And it's one of those things. It's not an issue when you're winning ball games, but one of those things we're going to put in our file to keep an eye on. I'm hoping having him back will help with that. I know he didn't look great this past week.
First game back.
He's been practicing with the team, but it is still the whole game day is, it's been a weird thing for him. So I think getting him back into the mix, we'll see some more of that on his plate.
Absolutely. Ready to recap the rest of the week?
Yep.
All right, let's go through it. We'll first start in the ACC Friday night. Syracuse beats UNLV 44-41 in overtime. Syracuse had a hilarious time possession split. I think they held it for more than 40 minutes. UNLV almost did it, but just couldn't get it done in OT. Valiant effort by the Rebels and Brendan Marion, who look just fine without Sluka. However, it makes that group of 5 slot interesting. Syracuse is now what? 5-1? Go ahead.
5-1. Yeah, 5-1. Did you see the play that ended the game?
The run
it was, but it was like linebacker met running back out on the edge, and he like stood him up at first, and then he just couldn't get him down on the ground. It was like, I don't know, just the craziest little bit more effort from Syracuse. Like, it was an incredible game, high scoring back and forth. And UNLV was just so close to doing it. I was rooting for them. But tough loss for them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to say that running back LaQuint Allen is pretty good. I mean, he's beefy. He can tussle with the best of them. I will say, Kyle McCord throwing 63 passes is something that I feel like you don't want to see against a non-G5 team with just lesser talent at the cornerback position.
That's an insane. That's an insane stat line from him.
I don't know.
I mean, he completed a decent amount of them. I mean, he was 40 for 63 with 355 and 3 touchdowns, which sounds like a good stat line. But I don't know how much of that is this being a bit of a shootout and him needing to throw, or like, is that going to be Syracuse's game plan moving forward? I don't know.
I mean, they're a dome team, but like, I don't think that UNLV did a great job of getting pressure on McCord, and like when he got pressure on him, he didn't look great. But just something to file away in the old tickler. But moving forward, so now Syracuse at 4-1. Sorry, not 5-1. Boston College loses to Virginia 24-14. I think BC is sort of out of the race in that middle pack, and Virginia is 4-1. Very nice for them. I did not think they'd be any good at all. Wake Forest beats NC State 34-30 in the Toilet Bowl. NC State is probably resoundingly the worst team in the league. I don't know if they play. They play Florida State.
I don't know. That would be a very funny Toilet Bowl match, though, because both of them kind of having some high hopes coming in this season, and very disappointing.
They don't, but they get Stanford and they get UNC. So 2 more games to look out for on the NC State schedule. Vatek
scary hit on Grayson McCall in this game. I don't know if you weren't watching with us yet, but I'm sure you saw that clip. So hope he's good. He was moving his extremities, but it was a Tua level concussion I think he had. So
and then they lose on top of that. It is a bad situation. Just overall in that state, not a lot of great stuff happening on the football field, other than Duke, but they lost too. Anyway, hope Grayson McCall is okay. As I was saying before, Virginia Tech beats Stanford 31-7. Not a lot to unpack here, as well as Duke losing to Georgia Tech 24-14 ends their perfect season. But I don't know. I think these are 2 sort of middle of the pack ACC teams. I will say, and then Clemson beats up on Florida State without DJ 29-13. There were two big games that sort of happened last week, and that was SMU 34, Louisville 27. That sort of separates two teams that were in that, what I consider that second level of conference championship contention. Both have some pretty. Louisville has a very tough path to get to the AC championship. SMU does play a lot of the better teams in the conference as well, including Miami. But I think this separates SMU as like a true contender, and we get them, I believe, in about a month here. But that's something to look out for, as well as, I think this is really good back and forth. SMU just happened to pull out later. They scored the game-winning touchdown. Louisville couldn't. I think that Louisville, while decent, is probably not ready to, or not as good of a team to be in that top echelon. SMU, after looking a little weird early, got that.
Who did they lose to?
What?
Who did they lose to?
They lost to undefeated BYU.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, so
But
that's like a quality loss. They look good against Louisville this past weekend, man.
They did. I mean, they had that very weird opening game to Nevada. They changed quarterbacks from Preston Stone to Kevin Jennings, and they looked a lot better, especially the last couple of weeks, beating up on TCU and Florida State, taking care of business against Louisville. I'd have them as sort of like top 3 team right now with Clemson and Miami.
Yeah.
And speaking of Miami, they come back from 25 points down in the second half to beat Cal 39-38. Before we talk about any of that, I do have some takes on this game because obviously we're playing Cal next, but did you see the clips of the controversial calls at the end of this game?
Did not.
Okay. There was a very, very controversial no call on what I thought was clear targeting that would have given Cal a first down, most likely ended the game, as well as Miami having 2 O linemen 5 yards downfield on their final touchdown with 40 seconds left to end the game. The thing is, though, you were up by 25 points at home, and you gave up 21 in the fourth quarter. Probably should have won that game, I'll be honest. I mean, Cal in the first half they had a very weird offense because, let me pull up the stats here because I need to see this. So, Mendoza only throws it 22 times, completes 11 of them, but still throws for 285 because they just had bomb after bomb after bomb in the passing game. They had 3 of their touchdowns on extremely long plays. They were awful rushing the ball. They're leading. They had 3 guys tied for their lead with 20 yards each. No one with more than that. Jade Knott only had 7 carries for 2 yards. I mean, the Miami front was just stuffing them all day. But their secondary could not, stop a wet fart. Also, Cam Ward having a very stupid, Brett Favre style pick 6, which gave Cal another score. But it's so weird because the defense was awful on the back end for Miami, and Cam Ward had a bozo gene play. But he's still good enough to just win the game outright when it comes down to it, which is so frustrating because I want to see Miami lose. I hate these motherfuckers.
Dude, is Miami... It's funny because I'm watching the game right now. Is Miami the Chiefs of college football? Where people complain about calls a lot, right? Every time the Chiefs win, the refs gave it to them. But I think that's just part of when you make mistakes on good teams, they win. And that could be Miami here.
For sure, but I think the targeting one was a little blatant because
okay,
if you watch
college refs are also different than NFL refs. So
in a sense though, you're spiritually correct because you're right. Because realistically, Cal should have won this game with or without
the penalties.
Yeah, you were up so big late. You just need to convert 1 or 2 first downs, but honestly, you just couldn't run the ball at all. And Fernando Mendoza he hit the open guys, but he's not the best quarterback in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, dude, Miami just keeps getting it done. Last second, bringing it down to the wire. If you're a Miami fan, you can't feel great about that because as somebody who has had two comeback, you know, nail biter wins already, that's not always the most fun.
No, and I think on this schedule, I'm just looking ahead here for Miami. They're off this week, but I think there are some chances for them to really fuck it up. I mean, they looked great through the first four, but they're liable to fuck it up at any moment. It's Mario Cristobal, right? They've got Louisville on the road after their bye, which if I was a Miami fan, even though Louisville just lost, they're still feisty. And you're on the road.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be a raucous environment. Like, I'd be worried about that one. Florida State, that's whatever. That's at home. Georgia Tech on the road in November, maybe. But, I mean, Syracuse on the road to end out the season, I don't know what could fucking happen. Like,
I don't
just
know.
with
You
how...
just named
Go ahead.
you named teams that were better than Virginia Tech and Cal just there, I think.
Yeah. And
you could maybe make the argument, like the conversation can at least be had, but like I think Syracuse is probably better than Cal. They can run the ball better. I don't know. Miami scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really scares me about Miami is it's their back end. Like the three teams I just named, Louisville, Georgia Tech less so, but Syracuse can throw the piss out of the ball. And the whole reason that they were really, really behind in this Cal game, and the reason why Virginia Tech was able to get into it is because they had so many fuck ups in the secondary, and that's going to bite them. I don't know. It's sort of you're weighing that plus like the Cam Ward bozo plays against. Well, Cam Ward can just win you a game on his own.
Yeah. Probably a good time for them to have a bye week so they can reset a little bit and get back to mid-season or early season form.
Yeah, that's definitely because they've played six. Yeah, they've
Six
played
games.
six already. So they've had a late bye. They're one of the few bowl eligible teams in the country, along with Indiana. I want to talk about the rest of the games here. I just have the 5 big upsets. We'll talk about them real quick.
Sure.
All right, let's go ahead. We'll go to the big one last. Tennessee loses at Arkansas. Number 4 Tennessee goes down 14-19. Missouri gets pasted. Number 9 Missouri loses 41-10 on the road at Texas A&M. Defending national champions Michigan lose 27-16 at Washington. Number 11 USC gets their welcome to the Big Ten moment. They go on the road to Minnesota and lose 24-17 and lose on a QB sneak touchdown on 4th down. And then the big one, the generational. The Vanderbilt Commodores welcome in the number 1 Alabama Crimson Tide, fresh off the game of the year, and give us another game of the year, beating them 40-35. Vanderbilt's first ever win over a top 5 team, let alone top 1. And Mason, do you want to guess the last time Vanderbilt beat Alabama at all?
I'm going to see, I know it's so long ago, but I'm just going to give you a decade. Okay. And I think it was sometime in the 90s.
So you win on a technicality because Alabama won in 1993, but they forfeited the game. So it's technically a Vanderbilt win.
Okay.
The last time they beat them was 1984 on the road by a score of 30-21. The last win in Nashville was 14-10 in 1969.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, this is one of the most lopsided just conference opponents you'll ever see. Bama leads the all-time series 60-20, but I mean, this wasn't even fluky. I mean, they did get a pick 6 against Alabama.
They were the better team, though. They kind of bullied Bama, which is why I think this was different than any other Bama upset that's happened before.
Oh, 100. I mean, like, it was not only that, like, first off, they straight up bullied him. Diego Pavia went nuclear. He had counted for about 300 of the team's 500 yards, but Vanderbilt hit 0 explosive plays in this game. They just kept grinding the ball out. I think they held something like a 40 to 20 minute advantage in terms of time of possession. Like, obviously, the defense had trouble containing Alabama, but this offense, which is run by Tim Beck out of New Mexico State, who brought along Diego Pavia with him, oh my goodness.
It was at the end of the game, too, when Alabama was trying to claw their way back in. They just needed to get a stop on a couple third downs and use some timeouts, and they couldn't. Vanderbilt was just relentless and kept winning.
It was actually like an absurd like thing to see where the Bama defense was just breaking down and they could not get a single stop on third down, like you said. I mean, Pavia was almost perfect through the air. He was 16 to 20 for 252. On the ground, Vanderbilt total 166 yards, which was basically double Alabama's rushing. You'll never ever see again Alabama get outrushed by a factor of 2-1 by Vanderbilt. And then you talk about third down conversions, right? Vanderbilt was 12 of 18 on third down.
Pretty good.
That's pretty fucking good, man. Vanderbilt doesn't turn it over. Like I said, huge time possession advantage, and what a fucking win. What a crazy week. I mean, hell, we had 5 top 15 teams lose. Almost got it with Miami, but didn't. That was a little greedy in the night slot, but
I have to issue a formal apology to all our listeners here, because all of these games were funny as hell, and I didn't have a single one on my slate. This was about as funny, wouldn't it be funny, college slate as you could get. So this is my notes app. I'm typing out right now. This is my formal apology to all listeners out there. I'm sorry I didn't think Vanderbilt was going to beat Alabama.
All right. So I'm going to hit you with all the upsets, right? Give me the 1 to 10 on the funny meter, okay?
All right.
We'll start at the bottom. Number 11 USC losing to Minnesota.
I'm going to give this one like a 7. I think we always knew they were going to lose to like a Big Ten team that could run the ball. I didn't think it was going to be the fucking Golden Gophers.
Yeah.
So, that one's got to be like a 7. We'll get like a 7.6.
Okay. I'm thinking a low 7 only because I'm kind of disappointed they didn't do this in like November when it was snowing, but that also kind of makes it funnier that it didn't even take like the cold weather to get it done. I'm going to go with like 7-1 though, because
Okay.
I think I can arc the scale. Michigan losing to Washington on the road.
I think this one's significantly less funny because Michigan was fake ranked. Like,
Yes.
Washington was favored in this game. It's still very funny to see them lose, but because of that, I don't know, more of like a 4-5 here.
I'm going to give someone a 2-2. We saw this one.
It's always funny to see Michigan lose, but just not as funny as it could have been.
Yeah, it's just because we know that like Michigan's not even fun to watch. They suck.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
All right. Mizzou face planting at Texas A&M 41-10.
I mean, this one was like not even funny because it was more of a stop, they're already dead kind of game.
Yeah.
This was just pure domination, and I mean, Texas A&M, they had that week 1 loss to Notre Dame, and after that they've looked pretty damn good. So sleeper team to make some noise in the SEC. I don't know if we're there yet, but this one's more of like
it was just ugly.
Yeah, it wasn't super funny. It was tough to watch.
By the way, I just want to say A&M is currently 3-0 in
Yeah,
conference.
yeah,
The remaining conference games are at Mississippi State, home against LSU, at South Carolina, at Auburn, and then home against number 1 Texas on rivalry week. Now, I'm not saying that they can't lose any of those games, but it is seeming to me that November 30th, home against Texas for Texas A&M, might be a bit of a big game in the history of this rivalry. Just going to put that one out there.
yeah. Could definitely make for some fireworks.
Real quick, Tennessee, Arkansas. I think this one was just low because just a boring, sloppy game.
Yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, I honestly like Tennessee. Um, their quarterback, what's his name, Nico?
I believe it. Yeah,
I can't even. I can't pronounce his last name. He looked not great. Um,
freshman game from him.
yeah, this was definitely his freshman game, which was like kind of about time that he's had one because he's looked pretty good thus far.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. This one doesn't do it for me on the funny scale either. Like it's a very funny upset, but Arkansas is not like they're not a Vanderbilt, right? They're going to compete. They're going to be that middle of the road SEC team. So it's not. I'm not sure what the line was on this game, but I think it was probably like around like 14 or 15.
I can see if I can find it.
But
Yeah,
I know those
14 and a
Tennessee
half.
fans, 14 and a half. So I know those Tennessee fans are probably feeling themselves. I'll go 5-7 here.
I think that's about right. Real quick, Vandy Bama is out of 10.
I mean, you can never do a full 10, right? So we'll go like, because what happens when a funnier upset comes along? So we'll
I
go
think
like
when a
not.
funnier
We'll go
upset
like
comes along,
9-7.
I'm going to give it a 10 because I think this is probably the funniest upset I've. Well, okay. App State, Michigan is probably the funniest because they were
Yeah,
FCS at the time. But this is like
yeah.
a 9-9.
It's definitely yeah, high nines for sure. Like I don't know, so all the stuff that happened after the game too. I think we didn't even talk about that, but there was some stuff with the players like getting into scuffles after the game.
Diego
You know,
Pavia cursing on the broadcast.
exactly. Like anytime you're pulling down field goal posts, all the stuff that happened with that also makes this game a hell of a lot funnier. So I think you're right. This is definitely like the upper echelon of funny upsets.
I will say, in terms of just like personally funny to us,
Yeah,
2015 when Temple beats Penn State in Philly, that
I was
one.
at that game.
No way.
I was at that game. Yeah, yeah, yep. I was the Penn State hater from that moment forward.
You know what, brother? Hell yeah, dude. Hell fucking yeah.
You're right. That's like a personal one though. That's that one's near and dear to our hearts for sure.
Yep. All right. That's all I got on that weekend. Ready to talk a little bit of Pitt versus Cal. Week 7, actually.
Yeah, let's get the scouting report out, baby.
All right. Cal is going to Pittsburgh, 3:30 on ESPN, getting the main billing this week for the ranked team. Two teams that wear blue and yellow-ish. We wear gold, they wear yellow. Both have a script. Both have a script. Yeah. Both are urban colleges. That's about all I got in terms of similarities. Cal is a very strange team this year. I've watched a little bit of them. Their running attack is nowhere near as good as I thought it would be. Jaden Ott, their leading carrier, only has 135 yards on the ground this year, averaging 2.9 per carry. Their best back has been Javion Thomas, who's averaging almost double that, 6.4 yards on the ground. Starting quarterback is Fernando Mendoza, who I don't know. He's okay. I think he's pedestrian. He's completing about 65% of his passes. He has 7 touchdowns and 3 picks on the year. throwing for about 235 a game, but I don't know. I'm not particularly scared of anything that they do. I think they just do a lot of things good and nothing like excellently. Like their defense is, as we saw last week, prone to just some awful, awful stuff. Like Xavier Restrepo in the Miami game was getting open all day. I think their O line is actively terrible. I think the D line will have a chance to really get some confidence going in this game coming up. I think that Mendoza, I don't think he's great, but he will punish you if you have open guys. But in the Florida State game, he really struggled against a really solid pass rush all game. And like I said, it's just weird that they can't get Ott going pretty much at all. He's under 200 yards through 5 games. I will say one of the big things, though, is that they have a defense that is they're just turnover hawks. I think I want to say they're like towards the top of the country in interceptions. So they're one of their defensive backs, Noel Williams, already has 5 picks on the year, and that is one of 11 forced by the defense overall, as well as 1 fumble. But like these guys are ball hawks, and that's a little bit concerning with Eli. Eli's been very good. He's had 1 or 2 like freshman interceptions. A little bit loose with the ball. I can't say I love that, but Miami showed that you can get guys open against this defense, and I'm just hoping that even though we have a couple of good running backs coming into town with, with Thomas and Ott, the O line is going to give them enough, problems. Give Cal their own problems if we can get Nick James and Sean Fitzsimmons going. Maybe even see some more out of what I want to see really is just like sacks. I want to see sacks by the D line. I want to see them finish it. I want to see more tackles for loss from the D line because I know this is an O line that struggles. I think the Cal defense, while it did hold, they've held some schools in check, but I don't love the schools they've played. They played Auburn, who's awful. They beat Auburn, and then they beat Florida State, who's also awful. Or they lost to Florida State, who's awful. They couldn't really get anything going against them. I think they're fine. I think they're sort of a middle class team, but I don't think they do anything particularly well enough for. I don't know. I'm not too concerned, but at the same time, Jaden Ott and Javion Thomas are good enough to the point where they could break one just like a Marion Hampton. They have a much smaller workload, and Mendoza is fairly mobile as well. But
I think
there's
it's
nothing
one
I
of those
love
games.
about the top.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think that if we take care of the ball, if we win the turnover battle, and we just play our game on offense, I like our defense to come up and get a couple stops that kind of separate us from them in this game. Like you said, they've played some teams really tough, but they've also looked suspect at times.
Yep.
So I think if we can just play our game, don't turn the ball over, we'll get. I have faith in our defense to get a couple stops. It might be a high scoring game, but I think it's pretty damn similar to what we just game planned for UNC.
I kind of agree there. I think that their rushing attack is a little bit worse, even though they might have a better player. Their line's just a little bit worse. They have a much worse quarterback and receiving room. I think that the emphasis this week for Pitt has to be just taking care of the ball, especially with that ball hawk corner sort of roaming their defensive backfield.
Limiting big plays too. I think that's what kind of got Cal to the point that Miami had to have this comeback win was a lot of explosive plays. So if we can even just limit some of those big hitters, I think that's a huge win for us.
100%. I mean, really, I think, they had like real explosives. I think the problem with the defense last week was sort of chunk plays against UNC. I think you can manage this team if you hold them just to chunks. If you limit them to having, explosive plays, that is a real win for you. And I think it really bodes well for for just the chances in this game. I will say, just looking at the advanced stats here, or the analytical models, I like to use SP Plus. They have us as a 64% chance of winning against Cal. They like us by 6.4 points against the Golden Bears.
Nice. Well, the line I see here on ESPN has us favored by 3. So seems like there's some good value there.
Yep. And I will say it is a chance to get bowl eligible 6 weeks into the season, double up the win total from last year, go into that second half of the season, another bye week's coming up. With a lot of momentum, 6-0 is all the momentum you can ask for going into games against Syracuse, SMU, and like sort of the really tough part of the schedule opens up there. But I've been keeping track. The magic number for them to hit this Saturday to pass their season total from last year for scoring is 14 points. If they score 15 or more points, we have officially passed the season scoring total of, the offensive coordinator from hell, Frank Signetti Jr.
That's just simply unreal. I don't know. I feel like we say it every week. We knew it was going to be better, but I couldn't be more happy with the way things have turned out.
I think we all thought it was going to be better. We did not expect it to get better like this, just so quickly.
I thought it would take a year. I thought there would be some growing pains, and I'm sure there still will be. Don't get me wrong. Because like you said, we do have a pretty tough schedule coming up. But we've been through a lot of adversity already. I mean, some good football is going to be played these next couple of weeks, and it's fun that Pitt is like genuinely good again.
Yep. And I got nothing else, but if you're going to the game, I'll be in the tailgate lots. If you see me, say hi. That's pretty much all I got. I got no beer for you. You got to bring your own. So let's talk about the rest of the weekend. Now, I don't know if I'm going to leave the cold open in for this extent, but we were talking about this slate as a substance abuse slate. We'll get to that. We got to talk about the ACC first. This is a sort of strange ACC slate. Not a lot of great games. Let me just pull it up so I have the times here because I almost forgot to do that. So at noon, you've got a couple games going. You've got Clemson going to Wake Forest, which I have no interest in, and then Georgia Tech going to North Carolina. They're going to score a lot of points there on the CW. No interest in Clemson whatsoever. They're just going to kill Wake Forest. Sort of continuing their meteoric rise from losing week 1. At the same time as the Pitt game, you got Stanford going to Notre Dame. That's going to be a bloodletting. But you've got Louisville at Virginia, which sort of is going to be a separation game between these two teams in terms of where they stand overall in the ACC rankings. I think that's really the only other good game you have in the conference this weekend because the night game is Syracuse at NC State, which is a fucking stinker. And Syracuse is just going to beat the hell out of them, so I have really no interest in that one. But the rest of the weekend is pretty damn good. It's a very balanced slate, I will say, other than the noon one, which I don't think is that great. But as a reminder, we're in the middle of like 60-something days of football straight. You've got games on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays now, courtesy of
Action, baby.
And the Sun Belt. No, Action's not yet. They're later.
Oh, shit.
Yep, it is CUSA on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the Sun Belt also has a game on Thursday, but I believe the entire CUSA is playing on a weeknight this week. None of the games are great, but if you're going to watch football, you're going to watch football. Coastal Carolina going to James Madison, 7:30 on Thursday is probably the best game out of all of them. But moving into the rest of the weekend, Friday night, not a ton here, but you get Utah going to Arizona State, who is 4-1, which is respect to Arizona State. Didn't expect that. I think if Cam Rising doesn't play, Utah is probably cooked here.
I'm done with Cam Rising. Either play or don't, bro. He's letting me down.
Just medically retire at this point if you're if you're getting fucked up like this. It would. I don't want to keep doing the whole rigmarole. I know I bet on Utah to make the playoffs, probably cursed them, but if I don't have to worry about them week in and week out, it would just be better and just file them away to just lose. But whatever.
I still believe.
If Cam Rising doesn't play, I don't even know if they're going to be competitive with Arizona State, who's looked fairly good this year. Moving into Saturday, the noon slate is a bunch of meh. We already talked about Clemson, Wake Forest, but you've got South Carolina going to Alabama. I think South Carolina is going to get an ass whooping. Bama taking out some of their rage, losing to Vanderbilt. Missouri's going to UMass. You got Washington, Iowa, Wisconsin, Rutgers. No interest, but the weekend starts in the 3:30 slot. Obviously, you have Pitt and California on the main screen, but a lot of good games here for the secondary screen. You've got Red River, Texas, Oklahoma on ABC. You got Penn State going to USC on CBS. Just two great helmet matchups to flip between while, Pitt's on commercial or, just on the second screen there. But any sort of I think Texas and Penn State probably both win in this, but I don't know how you're feeling.
I agree with you. I think we got way too many upsets out last week to have another crazy week. But I will say I'm looking here at the line in the Penn State game. They're only favored by 5.5 points.
Huh.
I think that's a lower number than I would have thought it would be. So I don't know. There's a little hope there if we could get at least a good ball game. I think that Texas is going to handle Oklahoma. But
do you know if Quinn is starting or is it Arch still?
I'm pretty sure he's going to play. Because wasn't he like 50-50 if he was going to play this week?
I think 2 weeks ago. I think Texas was on a bye this week.
Oh, that's right. They were. Yeah, so coming off a bye, I think he's going to be. I'm pretty sure he's going to play.
Yeah.
Sources, something I think I saw on Twitter.
There you go. I agree. I think Texas is probably going to run away with this one, but it's always fun to watch Red River. I think Penn State, honestly, I don't know if USC can pull it off because I like Penn State's defense a good bit. I think they can really thump. But they haven't seen an offense that can move the ball quite like USC and Miller Moss, who I think is markedly better than Caleb Williams ever was at USC.
Well, if you're Penn State, too, the fact that USC coming off a loss last week is, they're going to get kind of probably a tough week of practice. Lincoln Riley's going to be laying into them a little bit. So they might come out firing, and they definitely – I'll say this is the first team all year that's going to play Penn State that actually has a shot at beating them. I don't think Illinois really even had a fair chance there. So this is kind of their first
real test.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think Illinois was able to keep it dirty and mucky, but they really had no shot because their offense was so bad. USC's got an offense and a defense that can thump. So I'm sort of I won't be watching this one. Obviously, I'll be at the game, but I'll be checking the score maybe when I go to the bathroom.
There you go.
There we go.
Well, I'm sure, too, if Penn State's losing, they'll probably throw that score up somewhere in Heinz Field.
Ooh.
So.
Okay. All right. I'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah.
Now, moving ahead to the evening. And this is why I called it a substance abuse weekend. So I'm just going to list off the games, and I think they just get better as the night goes on. So you've got Florida going to Tennessee at 7 o'clock on ESPN, which, even though it's probably not going to be a great game, it's a good rivalry game, and Tennessee has shown that they are willing to crap their pants at any time. You have Washington State going to Fresno State at the same time on FS1. Two fantastic offenses. Mateer, the quarterback for Washington State, is like the ultimate gunslinger, and you should dedicate some time on one of your screens to go see him. Game of the weekend at 7:30 on NBC. Number 2 Ohio State goes to number 3 Oregon. Matchup of undefeated teams. I'm going to say right now, this is the fucking Christmas matchup of the week. We'll return to that one. At the same time on ABC, you got Ole Miss going to LSU, top 15 matchup. At 8 o'clock, you have number 11 Iowa State going to West Virginia. Now, do you remember? I think it was 4 or 5 years ago when you had an undefeated West Virginia going into Iowa State, and Iowa State was wearing a blackout uniform. I think it was
Yeah.
when Will Greer was still there,
Yeah.
and then unranked Iowa State beat the piss out of West Virginia. You now have the same thing happening down to Iowa State. This is Iowa State is 5-0. West Virginia was 5-0 going into that game. I think their rankings were a little bit different, but West Virginia is debuting their Coal Rush uniforms. Nighttime game in Morgantown. All I'm saying is I'm noticing. I'm keeping an eye on this.
The storyline is there. The only thing I think we have to look at is to make sure, are we gonna get Garrett Green? Didn't he go down?
Yes. Yeah, he finished out last week's game. He was hurt for like a drive
Oh,
or
he
two.
did. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. I just remember seeing that. I wasn't sure what his status was. Fuck yeah, they could do that. Hey, at this point, as much as we hate to say it, like, we root for West Virginia because it's going to make us look a hell of a lot better. So
They're undefeated in the Big 12. Just want to point that out there. So
yeah.
something to think about. Then moving into the late night slate, 10:15 on ESPN. Kansas State goes to Colorado. That is a ton of points being scored there. Then 11 o'clock on CBS SN. Boise State and Ashton Genty go to Hawaii for the substance abuse game of the year. Ashton Genty in the first half last week, I think, had what did he have? He had some ridiculous stat line. It was
I think he rushed. You got
13 carries,
yeah.
186, 3 touchdowns.
And he didn't play the second half, right?
Didn't play the second half.
That's crazy. That's so crazy.
He was averaging what is his 10.9 yards per rush.
That's just ridiculous. Well, dude, and I'm wondering now, after that week that he had, after the week that Jalen Miller had, after the week that Cam Ward had, what the Heisman standings are now.
I think because Ward is undefeated, I still think he's considered until his bozo shit costs him a game. I do think right now it's Genty and it's Travis Hunter as the two favorites. I think it's too early to tell for anybody else, but like as of like early season Heisman,
according to FanDuel, Ashton Gianti is your favorite at plus 220. Travis Hunter is your second favorite at plus 320. Cam Ward third at plus 450, and then a pretty significant drop off after that. So
hey man, I'm just that fucking good.
Last week Gianti was at like anywhere from 2,500 to 3,500, and now he's at plus 220. That's crazy.
If he just keeps playing like that, it's hard to say no to inviting him to New York, really.
For sure.
So
he'll at this point, I think, even if he slows down a little bit, he's probably one of those guys that's going to get an invite, I would think, regardless.
Yeah, I think he's at least through 12 games, not counting conference championships or any sort of potential postseason games. He is not on pace to break the single season rushing record because, obviously they're trying to sit him in the second half of these blowout games so he doesn't hurt himself. But he is on track to beat Barry Sanders' single season rushing touchdowns record.
That'd be a fun little tidbit of trivia.
Yeah, right now he's at 16 through 5 games. I think Barry's is 30 something. It's 36. Either way, Genty's really good. If you're awake, if you're sober enough to get on CBS SN, turn the game on. Now, we did sort of speed through this, but we got to talk about some of the other games. I think the one that really warrants the most talking about is Ohio State at Oregon. obviously the Christmas matchup of the week. How are you feeling about this one?
So I don't know if I've actually said this on the pod. Back before the season started, I put a 10-unit future on Oregon to win the national championship.
Okay.
It looked really bad those first 2 weeks, and I was shitting myself. But they've bounced back and looked really good since then. If they win this, I'll feel pretty good about it. But this is what you want to see when Oregon's coming into the Big Ten. I don't know. It's just going to be like a perfect Saturday night football game. It's going to be a good one.
Oh, the game's going to be fantastic. I don't know. I don't really know if Oregon's up to the task of winning here, because like Ashton Genty almost beat Oregon by himself. They gave up 34 to Boise, which they've obviously not given up that much in any other game this year. I don't know if they're going to be able to stop the Ohio State offense, especially that rushing attack with Judkins and Henderson. And I just don't think like Dylan Gabriel's that good. I came up with Bozo Nix this week because he just keeps throwing fucking stupid ass picks.
Yeah,
He's a fucking check down merchant, by the way. That is some crazy ass shit they're doing up there.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State a 3-point favorite in this game. So I don't know. You know who I'm rooting for.
All right.
I would think that, Ohio State is a little bit of the more people would probably be rooting for Oregon than Ohio State here. But I don't know. I could see it going either way.
I'm just gonna say you're on Oregon. I'm just gonna go the other way. I'll say Ohio State. I think they probably squeak it out, but like you said, I can probably see this going either way.
Well, if that's what again, we're playing the long game here. If Ohio State wants a narrow margin victory and then Oregon still finds a way to make the Big Ten championship and beats them again, that's fine too. So I'll pick my battles, but this would be a big one either way. Whoever wins this game is they're probably going to walk to Big Ten championship, I would think.
Yeah, neither. I mean, Oregon has a ridiculously easy schedule down the stretch. I think Ohio State still has Penn State on the road, and increasingly a matchup at home against Indiana looks trickier than originally expected.
Yeah,
but
man, shout out to the Hoosiers. I don't know that I've watched a whole lot of them, but they're putting up one of the sneaky, kind of more surprising seasons. And yeah, they might be top 4 team in that conference. 4th best team in that conference.
I think easily. I think that's totally true. I mean, they could, dude. Indiana could go 11-1, man. You want to hear the schedule?
Yeah, who do they round out with?
All right, so we'll get off after this because we're talking about Indiana here, but we know we've hit the mark when we're talking about 11-1 Indiana here. But
oh yeah,
so their next 2 games they're off this week. They've played 6 in a row. They go home against Nebraska and Washington back to back. They go at Michigan State the next week. They get Michigan at home the week after that. Did I miss a bye week for them? No, I guess they just kind of go straight like that. Then they get Ohio State on the road and then home against Purdue to round out the season. Oh, sorry. They get a bye week before Ohio State. I would take Indiana straight up in all of those games except for the Ohio State one. And if they keep winning, I don't know. I can see it. This offense is insane. I wanted Pitt to hire their OC, Mike Shanahan. Mike Shanahan? No. That's not the right fucking name. Who is it?
No, he's the Niners coach.
He's all no. It's also Mike Shanahan. I think no
Oh,
relation.
really?
Though. Yeah.
That's crazy. It's just a football name.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
look out
Kurt
for an
Cignetti
11-1.
making an impact right away.
Dude, he's fucking smoking those cigs in Bloomington, Indiana. And look out for an 11-1 Hoosier team coming to a stadium near you. That's going to do it for this week. If you like the show, follow us on Twitter at SimplifiedPod. We'll see you next week.
Hail to Pitt.
Beat the Bears.